Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're in the shop today and we'll be working on the Corvette yet again. You guys will notice that the fender is off. If you guys have seen the previous videos, we did the catch can install, did the oil cooler install, and now we're gonna be moving on to the braking system, and we've got a few updates there. If you guys can see below, we've got a number of boxes here, and we've got two parts from GM. We've got a universal master cylinder bleeder kit and some brake fluid. So if you guys can tell, we have a master cylinder and a new brake booster. So what these are off of, they are off of I think it's a 2009 or 2010 plus Corvette. There's a thread out there by Louis Gigliotti. I think he's moved on to his own shop now. It might just be Louis Gigliotti Racing, something like that. It's separate from LG Motorsports. It's not part of his father's company. It's gone his own venture. And he actually had done a cutaway of the 2005 to 2008 or 2009 master cylinder. He cut it in half, showed the seals, how everything worked, and basically took a 2010 plus master cylinder next to it, cut that in half, and basically showed the improvements that Chevrolet had made over the previous styles. So that's what we have here. We've got a 2010 plus brake booster and master cylinder. For those C5 owners, if you guys want to do the same upgrade, this should be plug and play. Everything should bolt in for you as well. So basically 97 and newer Corvettes, C5, C6, this should all bolt on. If you have a 2009 or 2010 or newer Corvette, basically when the C6 ZR1 came out, you guys already have this kit, so you guys don't need to worry about this. But for us C5 guys and us early C6 guys, this will be a bolt-on brake upgrade from the master cylinder side. Because I have complained in the past that, yes, we have these awesome carbon ceramic brakes. You guys remember we did the carbon ceramic swap a while ago. I've always mentioned that there's always been a delay. And what I mean by that is if you guys hit the brakes, there was always a slight hesitation and then it breaks. It was never that like you hit it and it the brake pedal goes to the floor, it stops on a dime. It doesn't do that right now. Currently it brakes. And once these carbon ceramics get hot, it breaks great. But still, there's that hesitation in there. So I'm kind of have a theory that the fact that we're running the older master cylinder, the older brake booster setup with the newer brakes, that was never designed for that. So I kind of have a small theory that the new awesome brakes that we have, they are simply overperforming the stock setup and it's not going to work well. Over on Facebook, there's a Corvette track enthusiast group, and this is actually where Louis posted the part numbers and all this and showing the cutaways. And someone actually commented that he had done this brake upgrade on a C6 Z06. I want to say it was a 2006 or 2007. And so he has the same brake master cylinder setup that we have. And his car was driving terribly. Every time he hit the brakes, either something mechanically went wrong or it just wasn't working well. And so he almost ripped the carbon ceramics off. And then the shop that sold him the parts said, hey, you should change the master cylinder out, change out the brake booster as well, and you should get the performance you're looking for. So I think we're kind of in between. I have definitely noticed a slight hesitation. I want to say his car basically didn't stop. So, the shop that sold him the parts told him to do this upgrade, and he said, did the swap and everything, bolted on, and he's had great performance ever since. So hopefully this will help eliminate the little hesitation that we've noticed over the last 6 months or so. Alright guys, here are all the parts opened up, and as you guys can see, that brake master cylinder looks like the exact same one we have. We've got our DOT4 fluid, we've got the bleeder kit, then we've got the brake booster, and yeah, the one part that's not going to be fun doing this install is going to be this brake master. We're basically going to have to get under the car, may even have to take the driver's seat out and get under there, get these 4 bolts disconnected from the inside of the firewall, and then disconnect this rod right here that's going to connect to our brake pedal. And then I think on the outside, I don't think we're going to have to really do anything. I think we might be able to pull the whole unit out as a whole. Just looking back on the car, the two things we're really going to have to worry about the most will be, one is the fuel pressure regulator, because that is attached to the brake booster, as well as our line lock. You guys can see that RSD logo right there in the middle. We're going to take that off as well. So yeah, we got some stuff to take off. And then the other thing that you guys will notice is you see some fluid on top of the master cylinder. This has been, I don't want to call it leaking, but it's always had residue on it for like the last year or two. So that might be a sign that our master cylinder has been going bad for a while. But like I said, you know, I've never really noticed any huge puddles of brake fluid, but it's always kind of got crap on top of it. And it's not overfilled, you know, it is up to the fill line. So it's not like we've got too much fluid in the whole system that it's bubbling up over the top and leaking. It's just weird that it's always wet. So it's just kind of a crazy little thing I've always noticed. And you guys can see there's probably some brake fluid right there. So, all right guys, we're wearing winter hat because it is January right now and it's probably 38 some degrees. But what you'll see is we have the Corvette here in the main bay. And that is because I need to get the maximum amount of room I can underneath the driver's side dash. The door will be open all the way. Basically what we'll be doing today is pulling off the brake booster, and then we will eventually swap the master cylinder as well. All right guys, we're gonna have a little bit of a change of plans. I think we're gonna have to disconnect the brake lines, because as you guys can see, I actually have already gotten, there's two 15mm nuts holding the master cylinder to the brake booster. I already got those out. I got the clutch reservoir little bracket, I got that out. I got the fuel pressure regulator, that's off. It's just loose sitting on the side. And also the line lock has also been pulled out as well, that RSD bracket right there. So I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna move the coolant reservoir over to on top of the motor. You know, just move it like over there. That might get us a little bit more room, but I think honestly we're still gonna have to disconnect those brake lines, pull the master cylinder off, pull the brake booster out, and go from there. Right in the middle of the camera there is a pin. You guys really can't see that, but there is a similar hardware piece right here. That little black, let's call it a clip, basically goes on the end of the pin and holds the rod for the brake booster to the brake pedal. You guys can see this brass little fitting, the pin itself. I've actually been able to push that forward and backward. Then you guys can also see the sensor and the unplugged harness above it. We're gonna have to take that off. It's a 7mm. That screw is right in the middle of the screen. You need to take that off, take that sensor off, and then you should be able to pull this. I want to say it's probably just a brake switch. Take that electronic brake switch out. We already disconnected it as we showed you above. Then we should be able to pull the pin out of the brake booster assembly and pull that forward. I did get that brake switch out. Unfortunately, it literally sheared right at the top here. And since this part is probably near 20 years old, we're just gonna go ahead and go to the auto parts store and buy a new one. O'Reilly's has these in stock locally. I checked AutoZone and Advance. They both don't have them. It is a Sunday, so you know that is another thing to consider. But I already got the pin out. You guys can see that right here. Once we got this sensor removed, that pin slid right out. There's not really any hardware holding that on besides that clip that we showed you earlier, so nothing major. We got the rod disconnected, we got the sensor out. Now I will say this, that whole sensor bracket is actually held in with 2 screws. I didn't realize that until I started searching for the part number to replace this one with the broken bolt. And yeah, there's 2 7mm bolts holding the whole bracket assembly on. Just take the stupid thing off. I wish I had known that, but this would have broken either way. You know, I probably wouldn't have taken the sensor off if I had just taken the whole bracket off. But yeah, that bolt, I was using a 1/4-inch wrench. I wasn't applying a ton of pressure to it, and it simply snapped in half. So, all right guys, we've got all 4 nuts from the inside of the car. And guys, you basically almost have to be a ventriloquist, I don't think is the right term, gymnast, whatever. Because you're gonna be up under the car, you know, under the dash, kind of laying like this, trying to get bolts, and I used every extension that I could, and it just, I basically don't know how I'm gonna get the bolts back on. I mean, I got all 4 off, but yeah, that was really quite difficult. You can also see that I got the coolant reservoir out as well as the master cylinder. We are gonna have to disconnect that. I tried moving the brake booster. Yeah, that thing ain't gonna budge. I gotta get some stuff out of the way, and so I'm pretty sure that master is gonna have to come out. But before we do that, I want to take care of bleeding the master cylinder by bench bleeding it. I think we showed it earlier. It's Dorman part number 14151, and basically has a bunch of different fittings for the side of the master cylinder. Gives you 2 hoses, and basically what we're going to do is fill this up with brake fluid. We're going to put I might even just use a screwdriver, because this is cast aluminum. It doesn't look like it's a very special shape or anything, but basically a blunt object. And what that's going to do is actually activate the master cylinder. And what we're going to do is just push brake fluid and try to get all the air out. And we might have to do this 2 or 3 times, but just wanted to show you using the kit, hooking it up. And I did screw these in. They are the correct size, but you don't want to over tighten them, if that makes sense, because those fittings, they are just plastic and you could easily strip that out. So, all right guys, I've already filled this up, not all the way, but probably like 3/4 of the way up to the fill line. And I'm just using a big punch here. And you guys can see I am moving fluid through the brake master cylinder. So, all right guys, so I've been fighting this brake booster for the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. And the best description I saw online was you're going to hear horrendous snapping noises when you're getting close to getting this thing loose. I think I've snapped 3 out of the 4. There's like a retaining clip. It's not necessarily breaking, but I've heard 3 very distinct noises that sound like a snap. And what those horrendous noises were is basically the retaining clips that hold this brake booster in from the factory when they installed it. You know, they kind of pushed it in, makes a clicking noise, and it's done. Well, trying to pull it back out, you're basically trying to unclick that mechanism, if that makes sense. You guys can see, you know, we've got this thing super loose. I don't think we're quite there. And yes, you'll see some marks on here. What I've been doing is took my 15mm wrench, put it like that, and I just been pushing down on it. And, you know, kind of doing that, kind of getting behind it with a pry bar. Now guys, the firewall is plastic, so I'm not using that to put any pressure really on it. Just trying to get back there and trying to get everything loose like we said. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. All right guys, today is a new day and we struggled on this stupid brake booster for about 2 hours last night. I cannot get it any more loose than it already was. I even tried crawling in the cab, pushing on it from the backside, hitting it with a hammer and extension, not gonna budge. And so what I've been doing this morning is actually making a tool. And you guys will see that I just took some random frame components. I want to say this was from the New Age cabinet on the corner there. That might be where this scrap metal was from. But you guys can see we basically took a piece of frame, drilled a couple holes in it, and welded it to another piece of frame. So, you know, we pulled out the MIG welder there. And what my goal for this is basically to sit on the 2 studs. We'll put some nuts underneath here and be able to pull up like that, if that makes sense. Because that little motion right there is not something I was able to do really well yesterday. And hopefully with this little tool that we made, we can knock this out. And the other thing is, we've got 2 nuts that we're gonna put on the end of the booster studs. And that way that thing's locked in there and it can't move. I tried using wrenches and everything I could yesterday, and we couldn't get that stupid thing off. Like, it's probably 85% of the way there. If this tool helps, great. If it doesn't, I only wasted maybe 15 minutes because I already had the metal. The welder was already set up for steel, so it wasn't a big conversion there. But yeah, just, you know, it's one of those things. And sometimes you just need to make a tool for a situation, and maybe this is one of them, maybe it's not. Guys, I almost shouldn't have turned the camera off, but if you guys can see, the booster's pretty much out. I just got to get some of these hoses out of the way, get this fuel line out of the way, and this thing is finally going to come out. Yeah, so I guess making a tool, taking 10 minutes to do it, will help save you hours of time. Kind of wish I'd done that yesterday. Alright guys, I actually didn't end up disconnecting anything, and if you guys can see what's on the floor, we got our old booster out, and I do need to save one of these nuts because these need to go on the back of the new booster. And so yeah, a couple minutes, make up a tool. Guys, I just got this out within 2 to 5 minutes, so that's pretty crazy. And yeah, obviously this is version 1. The metal I used was a little weak. You guys can see it bent on both ends, but that's fine. But yeah, for a single-use tool that was pretty much free, just a little bit of welding wire and a little bit of welding gas, that ain't bad. So I actually just put the 2 boosters next to each other, and guys, the older one is way bigger. Now what I mean by that is, if you guys can look at the back of the flange where the bolts go in, this is way thinner on the back section here compared to the 2005 model. That is crazy how much smaller it is just in width. It looks like it's totally about 2 inches shorter, and it's a lot narrower, if that makes sense. You know, this has a fatter bottom. This one's a little bit more narrow up front. This one's next way down in the back, so it'll give you more room to get this thing in without a lot less hassle. And then the other thing is, the 2005 actually weighs a ton more. I wouldn't say it was double, but yeah, there's definitely a weight difference between the 2005 to 2007 or 8 model and a 2009 plus. So, hey, a little bit of a weight savings. That ain't a bad thing. All right, guys, we've made a little bit of progress. I did get the brake booster back in the car. You guys can see I put some protective tape on the fuel line as well as the very top of the booster. That was just to prevent that from getting scratched off. Yeah, I got a couple scratches on it, but you know, we did what we could. When you're putting that back in, what you guys got to be careful about is, I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it, but back here where the rod comes through the firewall, that has to go into the right position. If you don't get it between, actually you guys can see it right there. I accidentally had it to the right, so the right of the screen, almost toward the steering column. I had the rod going in the wrong position. I had to basically pull it all the way back out and push it in the middle, and I was able to get that hooked up back to the brake pedal. So right now I do have the pin in connecting that brake rod. I think you guys can actually see that. You see that little pin coming out the side there? That is connecting the rod to the brake pedal. So for this install, I'm going to actually take the bracket out, put the sensor in, and then put the bracket and sensor in as one assembly. I looked online, and this was like 20 bucks at O'Reilly's. I saw used sensors with the bracket on eBay for about like $15, but I didn't want to wait, so I was able to go pick this up locally. So, all right, guys, I've gotten 2 of the studs in on the bottom. I haven't done the top ones because those are the harder to reach. But a little trick I wanted to show you guys was the little tape and, you know, pre-tape your little 15mm nut in your socket. That way you guys don't lose the bolts into the bowels of the car. So as you guys saw when we put this thing in, the bolts are basically like right here. So they are super up under the dash. You guys see this crazy long extension? Yeah, I needed every single inch of that. And that's probably 2 or 3 feet, probably 2.5 feet of extension. So yeah, you just kind of have to tape the nut into your socket, use all of the flexible wobbly sockets that you got, and you should be able to get this in. Now the bottom 2, all I really used was my Milwaukee 3/8 ratchet. Now I did thread the nut onto the stud, probably like 5 or 6 turns. You know, that way you just know you're seated and you're not, you know, going crooked or it's gonna strip. So we did that for the bottom 2. They worked just fine. And really for this, since we have all the extensions, all I'm doing is laying on my back over the door sill and looking up under the dash. I'm not really up in there, unlike the that position sensor that we still have to put in. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you a little tip, a little bit of tape, use a bunch of extensions, and you guys should be able to get these 4 studs in. All right, guys, we got one more little modification that we need to do with the swap, and that is going to be the clutch reservoir. You guys can see the shape of this. This would actually bolt to the brake booster, as you guys can see here. That would slide in there. You would obviously put the master cylinder on, and then this, and then the nuts that retain this. Well, the problem is the studs on the new brake booster are wider than what's on the that came with the 2005. So we're basically going to have to cut this in half. And honestly, I may only keep like a 1/4 inch underneath this bolt hole over here on the right. All right, a couple cuts later, you guys can see we got this down. And we're pretty much going to end the video here because all we have to do left is put that switch in. Then we have to bleed the brakes. Guys, we've done that. We've shown you how to do that. Real short of it is, start off with the passenger rear, driver rear, passenger front, driver front. And then if you have Brembos or Z06 brakes, start with the outer, then the inner on each corner. Sometimes you may have to bleed the inner just to get fluid into it, and then bleed the outer. It just kind of depends how dry your system is. Now, I would show you guys a test drive, but we got a couple more mods we need to do before we're going to do that. Basically, it's all stuff under the hood. It's going to be some exhaust work and some other stuff. If you guys want to see those future videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notification. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. try to get you some links for the Brake Master as well as the booster. I'm not really sure. I think I bought one of those on Amazon. One of them I think I bought through a dealership. We'll give you part numbers at the least. And also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. We do have some new Corvette merch. This is actually an older sweatshirt that's still on there, but yeah, new Corvette merch, more recent ZR2 merch. And one last quick tip before we go. Like I showed you guys earlier, we made a tool. I'm going to reiterate that 1,000 times. If you guys have a situation where you can make a tool in 5 minutes and it's going to save you hours of work, go ahead and make it. Because guys, if I had known that I needed that tool to, pry that brake booster off the firewall, I would have made it last night and not wasted 2 or 3 hours. Literally like shaking the car up and down, left, right, trying to get that stupid thing out. If I made that, it took me 5 minutes, got the booster off in 5 minutes, and saved yourself hours. So learn from my struggles, make yourself a tool, and that will help you with this swap. So that's gonna be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.